Imagine your bank account going from $0 to millions of dollars in one day. Even better, imagine moving from living in the streets to living in some of the most lavish castles in the world overnight. And you didn't even break a sweat. Some might call that luck, others may call it charm, while most people might say it's God's will. But regardless of what you call it, we can all agree that these are some of the luckiest bastards in the world. One went from being locked out of his house to opening up an entire homeless shelter for homeless people after hitting the jackpot. Another one went from sleeping on his sister's couch to winning hundreds of thousands of dollars in the lottery to buy a house. But while others had their big break, others did not fare so well with their newfound wealth, something experts have called the sudden wealth syndrome. And today we shall examine these lucky homeless people who hit the lottery and suddenly became rich. First on the list is Laszlo Andrassy. Date September 2013, amount $2.5 million. When Laszlo Andrassy decided to use the train station that day to go from his shelter in Győr to Budapest, he didn't realize just how lucky he was to make that decision. After all, he'd just been thrown out of his house, his items auctioned thanks to bank loans and unpaid bills that had accumulated for 1 year. His 4 kids were sent to foster care, his wife suffered panic attacks, and his life became a total disaster. So all he wanted to do was run away from his misery. At one point, he tried committing suicide, but the rope snapped. Another time, he had drunk himself to a ditch and woke up the next day with a frostbite on his leg, leading to his leg getting amputated. And if you think it can't get worse than that, his siblings actually conspired to make him homeless. When he was in his early 30s and had gone back to live with his mother, the siblings couldn't take it anymore. They saw it as classical Lesborn behavior, always heaping their old mother with unnecessary responsibilities. This forced him to become an alcoholic to the point he couldn't even remember his name. It was so bad that his mother and his siblings decided to throw him out of her house to fend for himself. But little did they know that it was their insolence that would catapult Lazario into a millionaire. In 1999, he met his wife at a trailer park while roaming around the streets looking for his next shelter. One thing led to another and they started life together, his wife working as an assistant of a histology lab. Their life was modest, nothing big. In fact, their combined household income was only $293 per month. It was so bad that bills kept on piling up that by the time he's buying up his lottery ticket at the train station to Budapest, they're 1 year late on rent and basically homeless. As he wonders whether this is a smart decision to spend his last few coins on a ticket, he looks at them one last time, puts them in his pocket, and boards the train.
One lucky person is the winner of the 3rd largest lottery jackpot in U.S. history.
He had won. The numbers matched. He was the 1 in a million lucky winner. 2.5 million straight to his bank account. He couldn't believe his eyes. It was a dream come true. He would no longer sleep in the streets, his children would no longer be in foster care, and his wife's panic attacks would come to an end. At least that's what he thought. He and his wife had taken shelter at their sister's place, so after arriving at her place, he took the ticket and slid it into a book of daily meditations from his AA counseling meetings, reasoning that it would be the last place anyone would look. Not even his wife was supposed to know yet, but the next morning, his wife saw him pacing up and down the room. And when he said he had won and was about to call the lottery company to claim it, she couldn't believe it until…
On the ticket there's a number at the top. Can I just get that number there?
You certainly can. 1 moment.
Mennyit nyert fiatal? Mondom, mit tudom én, az a sok szám, az minden.
And just like that, he went from being homeless to winning over $2.5 million. With their newfound millions, they've bought several properties across Hungary and they're planning to set up a shelter for homeless people. But he has already started seeing the money as a curse. Even with the roof over their heads, a nice car, tech gadgets, they're still somehow not happy.
Megint bebuktunk 20 milliót. Nem voltunk sem. Ez normális ember, aki ott nyer, azt mondja, hülye.
The second person is Victor Herrera. Imagine having a beautiful wife living in a beautiful apartment in the middle of Miami, Florida. But things start crumbling. One thing leads to another, you lose your job and your wife begins feeling resentment towards you. All you do is sit around, she says. You had no value to her life. She doesn't want you anymore. She kicks you and your son out of the house and files for divorce. Imagine that. That was Victor Herrera. After his wife kicked him and his son out of their house, they went to seek shelter at his sister's place, but she wasn't rich. They were to share a 1-bedroom apartment in Miami. If you know Miami, you know that summer temperatures can go as high as 90 degrees. So at night, the little air conditioner in the house was not enough to cool the rooms. It was a real struggle sleeping through the night as they dripped with sweat. And one night, Victor decides he can't take it anymore. He wakes up in the middle of the night and decides to go buy a bucket of ice from the store. And that was the decision that sealed his fate. After reaching the store, instead of buying the ice buckets, he decides to try out the lottery tickets. Was it a premonition of his winning? Was it a gut feeling? Perhaps he dreamt about it. Who knows? But whatever made him buy the lottery tickets also made sure his luck didn't run out. Because the lottery ticket he bought was actually the winning number, winning him $250,000 American dollars. Tears welled up in his eyes as the cashier confirmed the win. Their days of being homeless had come to an end. He took the money and got himself a new nice house without even thinking twice, helped his sister to pay some bill, and took his son to start life afresh. Wherever his wife is, she's probably regretting kicking him out and filing for divorce. The third is Michael Engfors. Year 2014, jackpot $500,000 American dollars. It is estimated that 8.6 million people lost their jobs in the 2008-2009 financial crisis in the USA. One such unlucky person was Michael Engfors. His business closed down when he was 54 years old. Contrary to what most people believe that life begins at 40, his life seemed to come to a tragic end in his prime. With no source of income, he quickly degenerated into an alcoholic. His family suffered the most, and eventually, the wife asked for a divorce. Thrown further into abject poverty, Michael had no option but to live in the streets. His daughter rejected him and his wife went to live far away. He sought shelter to a nearby Aspen homeless shelter that would not admit anyone with a blood alcohol level higher than 0.08, which is the Colorado state standard for being legally drunk. However, being broke forced him to keep his drinking low and allowed him to save some pennies. He was a carpenter by day, mending people's furniture, which earned him a few dollars, and a lottery seeker at night, looking for new lotteries to try out. Every day on his way to his homeless shelter, he would stop by at a nearby gas station and buy some lottery tickets, but he never won. For 7 years, he tried his luck, and every time the results were the same. On occasion, he would win a few dollars, but not even enough to recoup the money spent on the tickets. But that's until 2014 when he tried out his luck one final time with the $10. And as he scratched the first number, it dawned on him that he was $500,000 richer. He couldn't believe his eyes. But the gas station cashier checked the ticket and confirmed that he was actually the jackpot winner. That wasn't just luck, because the Colorado lottery said the odds of hitting the top prize in its Eternal Splendor scratch game are 840,000 to 1. Of all the people that could have won, Michael Engfors was the chosen one. And right after winning, he went straight to a nearby Catholic church and spent his last weekend sleeping on the floor, knowing he will never have to live in the streets again. And as expected, he immediately suffered from the sudden wealth syndrome, splurging his wealth and enjoying the finer things in life. He would sleep in different 5-star hotels, buying random people drinks and food. It got so worse that he slipped back into alcoholism and started spending most days drunk. But in a twist of events, he has decided to go back to stay at the homeless shelter despite his wealth. He says the homeless shelter protects him from alcoholism, unlike hotel rooms or his own house, where there is no one to keep him in check. He says he wants to reunite with his daughter wherever she may be and ask for forgiveness. Again, wherever his wife is, she's probably regretting kicking him out and filing for divorce. Fourth is Jerry Winkler, year 2010. Jackpot $3.8 million US. Some people are born lucky, others not so much. Like this 28-year-old man. When he was 5 years old, his single mother was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Imagine seeing your mom die little by little until she's no more. Eventually, he accepted his fate and went to live with his father. Ultimately, his father got a new family and they started sidelining him. Now, even the little family he had rejected him, so he found himself in the system, foster care, at 11 years old. For 5 years, he jumped from foster care to foster care, indulging in drugs and petty crimes. On a few occasions, he was thrown in jail, but that wasn't enough to curb his restless spirits. One day, while arguing with his stepmother, she told him that his father is not even his real father. All this while, he was his stepfather, and no one ever mentioned that to him. Sinking into depression, realizing that he might as well be an orphan, shattered him into pieces. After becoming an adult, he became homeless and started sleeping in the streets. When he applied for government assistance, the procedure required that they see him sleeping in the street every day for 4 weeks, something that he wasn't able to sustain. And then a light bulb moment came one day while still in the streets. He remembered that his mother might have mentioned an affair she had at her workplace. Could it be? No way. One of his stepbrothers told him they saw a newspaper article that mentioned that the man who his mother had an affair with was the owner of a huge company and he had just died. He called the journalist who wrote the story, gave out his story, and the investigation began. After tussles with the family of his real father, Alfred Winkler, they agreed to a DNA test, which came back 99.99%. He was his son. Although Alfred had given all his wealth to a charity trust fund in his will amounting to millions of dollars, the charity organization agreed to fund Jerry Winkler with stipends, and they now support his own organization of helping homeless people. Talk about going from grass to grace. The fifth is Grant Freeman, year 2010. Jackpot, 180,000 American dollars. Our next homeless man who hit the jackpot had no reason to be homeless. But he effed up. He started gambling pennies and winning some while losing some. This eventually led him to develop the infamous gambler's fallacy. Gambler's fallacy is a condition suffered by gamblers where they expect to win more despite losing. It was so bad that he even decided to move closer to where the magic happens, Las Vegas. At Las Vegas, he became a frequenter of some of the largest casinos, gambling away his little savings and eventually even his salary. Eventually, he lost everything including his house and was kicked out into the streets. Life got harder, but his hope of winning never reduced. After collecting pennies begging in the streets, he would often go buy lottery tickets in hopes of winning. Given a chance, he would rather sleep hungry but get a ticket. Eventually, life at Las Vegas proved difficult and he decided to hitchhike all the way to Nipton, California. This is where his stars would align. On one fateful day, he bought tickets, and those were the winning tickets. One ticket won him $8, but the second ticket won him an incredible $180,000. And it was at that point that he realized if he doesn't take care, gambling will take away all his winnings. So his first purchase was a modest house and he now lives in the suburbs of California. However, he still buys lottery tickets hoping to win even more. But lightning doesn't strike the same place twice, or does it? Only time will tell. If you feel inspired by these stories and want to continue getting similar inspiration, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. And let's get those tickets. Wishing you luck.